This is a 30-minute training to help you succeed with our North Star Staff Sharing Initiative. Make sure to view this training while you are clocked in. My name is Kelly Coffey. I oversee the Children's Ski and Snowboard School here at North Star. I'm a part of North Star leaders that this year are Staff Sharing Champions. Our job is to help you succeed in sharing staff and fulfilling our staff utilization initiative. We're North Star. We expect to be a highly sought after destination this winter for families excited to get active and outside in a safe environment. As popular as we expect to be, our staffing levels will be challenged to meet that demand. We don't intend to compromise the level of service our guests know us for. And this means for us to succeed, how we did things are no longer how we need to do things. When our resources, in this case staff levels, don't match our expectations, which is the service we will provide our guests, it's time to flex our reimagined muscles to bridge that gap. This is part of our larger enterprise-wide staff utilization initiative. You've likely heard about our clarification of job commitments. We're expecting our full-time employees to work an average of 35 hours per week, part-time employees 15 hours, and holiday help at levels below that. That is to make sure we're most effectively utilizing our existing staff. We also need you and your team to reimagine the processes within your department to look for ways to reduce the number of employees needed. Like I said, how we did things are no longer how we need to do things. The staff sharing portion of this initiative, represented by the green slice of the pie, focuses on creating partnerships between departments and building tools to help those partnerships share staff. That is what the content of this training focuses on. To boil it down, we want to put the right people in the right place at the right time. This is a leadership training. The topics happen to be on how to lead staff sharing, but above all, this is a training on how to continue to be a better leader. You are watching this video because you are a leader in one of the departments that will be involved in sharing staff with other departments this season. Staff sharing has always been a part of running a ski resort. We've done it informally, posting available shifts above time clocks, sending out need help emails to other managers right before high season. And this year, we want to formalize it more. We want to scale it up across the resort. We want to get ahead of the need. We want to create tools that help us most effectively get the right people in the right place at the right time. I'm going to kick off this training with a Q&A between leaders of Lift Ops and Ski and Snowboard School. These two departments have been on a multi-year journey of sharing staff, and their learnings, successes, and challenges provide a great context for what we're talking about with this video training. Here at North Star, there's been a partnership between Lift Operations and Ski and Snowboard School in sharing staff in order to run our chairlifts. So this has been a multi-year process. And so today I have Eric Carlo, manager of Lift Operations, and Magdalene Costa, Ski and Snowboard School supervisor, who've been intimately involved in this staff sharing journey we've had over the past few years. And they're here to talk about their multi-year journey and successes and failures, and how we've kind of gotten this partnership between these two departments to a much higher level. So kicking it off with you, Eric, you've been a part of this process for years. Why don't you walk us through what that multi-year journey has looked like?
Yeah, it's evolved a lot from when it started in 2018, where it was very small and specific of just helping us with really carpets up at Mid Mountain, and then it evolved more into. Then we were getting help actually at the Big Easy lift, and then it evolved into what it was last year, where we were getting 25 operators a day from other departments, and mostly ski and snowboard school.
And then Mags, kind of talk about when you got involved and kind of how you helped shape more the kind of our internal processes to make that staff sharing smooth.
So when I got involved in 2019, my first year as a supervisor, I think one of the key elements that I brought into it was planning ahead and communicating with lifts based off of what their needs were and then what we could honestly provide. We set some really high goals and really high hopes that season and didn't quite reach those, but I think we found a spot that we could work together and communicated, and that helped things start to run pretty smooth in between both departments.
So while it can, on paper, feel like, well, we're sharing staff, there shouldn't be that many challenges to it, but once we hit reality, there's quite a few challenges and stumbles that happen, and we've seen that over these years there. So, talk about some of the problems that have arose, and what you guys have done to mitigate those problems.
One of the biggest challenges, like I mentioned before, is definitely scheduling and making sure that we're providing lift ops or the other department with enough help. That also just comes back to communication. Like if I have 4 or 5 people call in sick that day or call out, that takes a lot of communication, not just with the other department, but within my department, of seeing if I can first fill those spots within our department and then unfortunately go to my other coworkers and be like, so we're a little short today, can you help us out? This is what the plan is, or let's make a plan so that we can fix it together.
Again, the scheduling, the communication's huge. And, the faster we get our need to them and the quicker they can let us know who we're getting and where we can put them. I mean, that's the challenge is, being the receiving department, obviously, making sure the people in the right place, their training level, where they're comfortable, where we're comfortable having them.
On that note of putting the right people in the right place, want to focus on safety for a minute. And as we know, anytime we put an employee in a non-routine task, the risk exposure of them getting injured on the job is higher. And so, that's an inevitable factor within this staff sharing piece. We're going to send an employee to a different department, one where they're not doing their job on a regular basis. So that injury risk is inevitably higher. So Carlo, talk about how you've been able to identify those risks when you are receiving an employee from another department to work in lift operations, and what your team does to mitigate those risks.
Our supervisors and leads are working with these individuals a lot, doing the hands-on, we call them modules. They go through a module at the lift and so forth. And then they get through various levels. We call it a red pin when you're considered an operator that can be left alone at a station. So all the aspects, the controls, the guest service, how to notify someone if you have an incident. We would identify these people and figure out, all right, this person, we can put them at the top of the lift by themselves. And then also their riding ability, which is great, is most of them know how to ski or snowboard already, and they've already been checked. So then that gives us the ability to work them at the lifts you have to ski and snowboard to.
So then pivoting from safety to employee engagement, inevitably there's going to be challenges that arise with employees being borrowed in other departments, and that is as true for the department that is giving away employees as it is for the department that's receiving employees. There's going to be different challenges and engagement, frustration, buy-in from that. So I'd like both of you to talk about, from the perspective of your own department, what challenges on the employee engagement side evolved, and how did you tackle those? So Mags, we'll start with you.
Yeah, so setting early expectations, Kelly, is definitely the first thing I think that made that shift almost to normalize this, as this is part of your job and we are all one team as a resort. And if you're not out there running a carpet or a lift for the other people that are taking lessons, then that entire guest experience is completely changed. So if you were teaching that lesson, like put yourself in the shoes of that instructor of that day, if we didn't have enough people to run carpet for, how complicated would it be for you to give that same guest experience without that carpet running? So just kind of setting those expectations and giving them answers and reasons and listening to them of what their difficulties were, of if they complained about this isn't my job, just having a conversation with them and giving them the viewpoint of how the whole resort needs little jobs to help run everything. The other aspect would be pretty much it ties in with full-time work. We don't always have consistent work for instructors, and I think giving them work outside of our department fulfills that need of full-time work.
And then Carlo, talk about the challenges on the engagement side that you faced among your frontline staff, and what you guys have done to try to mitigate that.
Yeah, so I think kind of following what Mag said is it is that communication where, they were hired to do a specific job and now they are being asked to work in it for a whole different department doing something else. And, just communicating with them that, and obviously thanking them a lot. We tried to thank them as much as we could. Like, we couldn't be running the resort without you, and the challenges are just the different levels of buy-in. Some are really into it. They're interested in the lifts and the job. Some are just doing it because they are getting the opportunity to get the paycheck. And then you have some that are pretty disinterested. And those, individuals, we work with Magna and the other supervisors just to find out what is the best spot. Is the best spot just them not working for us? So, because, the safety aspect is, if they're not fully engaged, then something could happen.
We really love to hear that when we send an employee to a different department and that they're doing a great job, we definitely want to give them gratitude. And we really appreciate that the other department is giving them gratitude on the spot. But some of the ways that Ski School specifically gives gratitude is on the spot, shout outs at morning meetings, like Carlos said. It even goes all the way up to Deidre writing personal thank you notes. And if it's above and beyond your job tasks, which we've asked a lot of our employees to do, and if they're working in multiple departments, Epic Service Awards is out there as well. And we want to take those opportunities and really make sure that we're pulling each individual employee and making sure that they feel appreciated for everything that they're doing for us and to help us run this resort.
What advice do you have for leaders of other departments who are really getting thrown into this higher level of staff sharing? How, based on the learnings that both of you have had over these years, how can some other leaders kind of get a head start on their own journey through this? So start with you, Mags.
I definitely think my first piece of advice would be from mostly a giving department. Don't be hesitant to reach back out to us and ask us questions, if it's about a specific employee or about how to discipline or how we would like to change our communication. I think probably one of our biggest struggles was assuming that, I've given you 5 people and that's what you need, and then hearing later on throughout the week that those 5 people just walked away because we didn't know what happened to them. So definitely just communicating both ways, and just knowing exactly where to go to make it a little bit easier and how that person prefers to communicate. If it's radio or Teams or a direct call to their cell phone, I think is the best advice I can give.
Sharing staff between 2 different departments or multiple departments can be a very big challenge and require extra steps for anybody in the leadership side of things. And yet, there's also plenty of positives that could potentially come about. So let's wrap it up here with, can each of you share one personal positive that has come about from this, journey of staff sharing between these 2 departments?
It was such a huge opportunity, and it ended up being just great to work with these individuals that were from other departments, and then we really got to know them way more than we would have if we were siloed and we're lift operators, they're ski schools. Yeah, we get along, we talk and so forth, but just getting the fact of working with them on a day-to-day basis, they get to learn, what we do, and a lot of them would say, "Wow, I had no idea this is what was involved in opening the lift and working on it all day." And it was great just getting to know him as a person.
I think you get to go out and you get to explore the mountain and you get to see what it takes to run this entire resort. And I think being part of that really helps us just feel more connected as one team. And I definitely feel comfortable now myself reaching out to other people and asking for advice, or just having those resources available is a huge win for myself and I think for our entire department.
Again, this has been Eric Carlo from Lift Operations and Magdalene Costa from Ski and Snowboard School, talking about how they've been sharing staff over the years and going through this journey of challenges, problem solving, and ultimately successes in linking these two departments to create a strong partnership in sharing staff and sharing those learnings so that all of us across North Star can be successful as we come into this higher level of need this season.
My key takeaways from this interview is the level of trust between the two departments that was built up over the years. It is that trust that allowed them to identify and overcome challenges, create more effective processes, and commit to a tight feedback loop that would nip problems in the bud. I also enjoyed how both Carlo and Mags highlighted the need for one on one conversations with employees and the value that came out of those. Lastly, Max highlighted the need to show gratitude to all employees. It's that gratitude that will smooth out the bumps and frustrations that naturally build up and allow us to successfully share staff, not just for a few days or a handful of weeks, but for the entire season. Let's then transition to the meat of this training, shifting our mindset. Before we can shift our employees' mindsets and build buy-in, first we have to shift our own mindset. I said it before, how we did things are no longer how we need to do things. As leaders, we're directly responsible for the success of a single department, and yet we all need to identify as resort employees and have ownership of our resort-wide goals. We need to understand the priorities of different departments in the resort overall, and at what point do those priorities take precedent over our own department needs. Next, we need to think how we define a shift. A work shift isn't necessarily an 8-hour day in a single department. It might be 3 hours in this department, 2 hours in that, 3 hours in the other. If we think about a busy Saturday, crowds don't hit every department at the same time. Some operations get slammed first thing in the morning, but they lighten up as the day goes on. Other operations don't get rolling until midday, and still others focus on our guests in the afternoons and evenings. Are there ways to flex our staff so that a single employee can help 2 or 3 departments exactly when they get busy? And this brings us to the need to have a problem solver's mindset. There will inevitably be obstacles every step of the way as we look to solve our staffing challenges. Sharing staff across departments is inherently more complicated than focusing employees on a single department. Our normal way of accomplishing tasks may not work under these season's conditions. These obstacles may not have obvious solutions, but if you can actively come into these situations with a problem solver's mindset, looking for ways to see around obstacles, you will find much more success. So do your best to be self-aware of how you're approaching these obstacles. Start the conversation with, how might we? Take a step back from the problem and list the point of view of teammates. Some new and creative solutions could be out there. You're the leader, you'll set the tone, and your team will follow. Building buy-in. This is where your leadership really kicks in. Building buy-in with your team on the topic of staff sharing requires the same tactics as building buy-in on any topic. First, your staff needs to understand the big picture, the why behind our need to share staff. Explain the big picture repeatedly at staff meetings and through one-on-one conversations. That leads to the second ingredient, strong two-way conversation. It's those conversations, formal and informal, that allow you to connect with your employees, get ahead of potential frustrations, and make sure that they feel supported. As the leader, you need to be the listener as much or more as the talker. This is where you can solicit feedback to improve the process of sharing your staff and help your employee feel like they have a voice in the matter. Lastly, but more importantly, you need to lean on showing gratitude. Does your employee understand the value that they're providing the resort? That need to communicate that value is as true for an employee helping out another department as it is for an employee in their home department being a resource for that other shared employee. Actively look for ways to show gratitude and recognition to your staff individually. This could be through one of our formal processes, like Epic Service Awards. But just as valuable is a heartfelt thank you. These are free to give out, and you have an unlimited supply. Whenever we're performing a non-routine task, a task that an employee doesn't do on a regular basis, the risk of injury increases. Therefore, with our staff sharing expectation, this increased risk is baked in. So as leaders, we need to be aware of that risk and stay on top of ways to reduce it. It is our responsibility to provide a safe working environment for all of our employees. When it comes to the safety of the shared employee, it is equally the responsibility of the giving supervisor, the receiving supervisor, and the employees themselves to make sure that they stay safe. Step one is to get ahead of this and make sure shared employees have adequate training to perform the task that they will be responsible for doing. By planning and offering scheduled cross-training sessions in each of our departments, teams that will rely on receiving shared staff will be set up well, hopefully with a small reserve army that can be called upon to fill holes in schedules all season long. It is paramount to track this training so that you have a log of which employees complete which trainings. For those last-minute requests, for example, maybe new shared employees help fill in the gaps on days when lots of staff called in sick, department leaders should have a plan in place for impromptu trainings and identifying what simpler roles that employee can staff and still add value to the operation. VRR did a great job of organizing their roles and identifying the training needs in this one-pager that they created and blasted out to other departments in the resort. This one-pager is a great tool to help managers and other departments help the rental shop with creating a reserve team of properly trained shared staff. I highly recommend every department create something similar. Step two is to make it the host supervisor's responsibility to check in with any shared staff at the start of the shift. They'll verify that the employee has completed the appropriate trainings, check in with the overall wellness of the employee for that day, and use this check-in as the way to thank the employee for helping out and expressing how valuable that is. Step three is proper supervision and support of that shared employee throughout the work shift. Regular check-ins from the supervisor, or even pairing up that shared employee with a veteran buddy who can guide and support. This will help mitigate that risk of injury. Now let's transition to the next steps for you to take with your teammates in your department. The first action item is to identify and connect with one or two complementary departments that seem like a good fit for sharing staff. If your department is busy in the mornings, but slows down in the afternoons, perhaps a department that is busy in the afternoons would be a good fit. The goal of this partnership is to create a tight communication loop between the management teams of both departments to understand the daily needs of staffing and when employees will get scheduled on these shared staff shifts. Now, if you're a department that will primarily be reliant on receiving staff from other departments to help run your operations, there are a few specific steps you and your team should take in order to make it easier to help get the help that you need. Identify and outline specific roles shared staff will fill in based on that different levels of training. That rental shop one-pager is a great example of that detailed roles with tiers of skill sets and training required. The goal of this step is for your team to be ready to accept any shared employee into your department and assure that they will add instant value, regardless if they are a pre-scheduled employee who has gone through that full training for the role or someone thrown in to help at the last minute. Lastly, look for creative ways to be able to accept more shared staff. One solution might be to flex your core staff schedule around the availability of the shared staff. Even breaking down a full day shift into partial shifts of 2 to 4 hours even might make it easier for employees in other departments to help out. If If you are a department that will primarily be sending your own employees to help other departments, here are some steps you should take. Coordinate with your partner departments to schedule cross-training sessions. Your team will be most valuable to the resort if you have a group of versatile employees that can go in many directions on any given day. Set expectations for your team. Explain the need for them to help out other departments this season and help them understand the big picture value that they will provide. This message should be reinforced in team meetings and in one-on-one conversations. Lastly, and most importantly, recognition. I've already stated this, but showing gratitude to the employees who work in multiple departments is the most important action we can take to make this staff sharing initiative work this winter. Once again, this is our enterprise-wide staff utilization initiative, where we're focused on 3 key areas to maximize how we're going to continue to deliver experiences of a lifetime to our guests, even though our staffing levels will be challenged in certain areas. First, we will make sure we're fully utilizing our existing staff by tracking hours and holding employees accountable to their full-time or part-time commitments. Second, your team will look to reimagine the processes within your department, looking for ways to reduce the number of employees needed. Third, the staff sharing portion of this initiative means you're creating partnerships between departments and building tools to help those partnerships share staff, allowing us to put the right people in the right place at the right time. There are a number of tools to help you and your department succeed with our staff utilization goals. At North Star, a number of our departments are experimenting with Sling. This is a scheduling app that helps make the process of scheduling staff more efficient. As multiple departments experiment with this app this winter, we hope to find norms that will help all of us use this tool to make cross-department staff sharing more effective and with less hiccups than in any year in the past. A training on the lift is labor management training. You may have already been assigned this online training. It highlights the techniques to schedule the employees you have and to forecast the staff you will need. A number of resources are linked in a Direct Connect article, Workforce Utilization Tools for Managers. I highly recommend you pull this up and investigate these links. Most important, have conversations with your manager and team to brainstorm how your department can overcome staffing challenges and help the whole resort. Myself and the other staff sharing champions are also eager to help. Please reach out and we can help brainstorm solutions to unique challenges of your department this season. We have now reached the end of the staff sharing training. The final step is to complete the quiz by following the link found in the email you received with this video. Please complete that quiz. It's how you will receive credit for completing this training. Thank you for your attention and your commitment to North Star's success. We are one team and one family here at North Star. Despite the unique challenges this year will throw our way, I'm confident we will have a great season and be proud of our accomplishments.